welcome to another episode of Talk with Timme. I'm Casey Timme, your host, and we are so excited to have our special guest tonight, Mr. Byron Harrison. Byron is the workforce advisor for Lone Star College Online, and we'll be talking with him a little bit about effective job search strategies. Byron, welcome to the show. It is awesome to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Casey. I am so excited to be here on Talk with Timme. I've been trying to get on this show for the longest time. My family loves you. We watch you every week. We love those segments that you do on healthy living and healthy eating and exercise.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
So as for me, I'm originally from the Houston area. I completed my bachelor's degree in sociology from DePaul University, and I also have a master's degree in political and justice studies. I have work experience in social services, adult and higher education. I've worked as a case manager, instructor, counselor, and also an academic advisor. Some of my skills include case management, client documentation, and career advising. I'm passionate about helping clients and students reach their academic and personal goals. I would love the opportunity to utilize my skills to accomplish the mission and goals of your organization. And guess what, Casey? What I just told you, that was my 30-second elevator pitch. And we can touch on that a little bit later.
Very cool. Wow. Thanks, Byron. That was a very impressive.
Yeah.
Sounds like a verbal resume. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And I cannot wait to hear more about that 30-second elevator pitch. And viewers, also, feel free to put your questions for Byron in the comment section online. So we're here to talk about some effective job search strategies. Byron, I read that as high as 80% of jobs are not publicly advertised. Is that true?
Well, Casey, I've heard that statistic before. That's probably more from the 1970s and 80s, like before the internet was created. I would say probably most jobs are posted internally within the company. Today, especially jobs that require a bachelor's degree or higher, probably up to 80% of those jobs can be found on online job boards such as Indeed, Monster, Career Builder. What I will say is probably true is probably 70% of employers begin looking for their talent internally and also in their immediate networks. So that could be someone that they maybe have worked with in the past or they have come in contact with. It might be a referral, someone that's on their LinkedIn profile, maybe a recruiting agency that they worked with. Also, it could be as high as 85% of jobs are filled through some type of networking. And we'll talk about networking a little bit later. But what that basically means, Casey, is that, it's not necessarily who you know, but it's about who knows you. That hiring manager is going to get referrals and connect with people that they've come in contact with to fill positions that they have.
So keep those connections.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's really interesting. And I'm sure you read about my story in my book. It's Timme time.
Yeah.
But, back in the day, years and years ago, I was a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before I knew even, what networking or any of this kind of thing was. And I kind of just jumped at the opportunity. I did that for about a year, decided that I would have rather gone back to college. So went back, got an associate's, got a bachelor's, eventually got a master's degree in human resources. But during that time, I was involved in a lot of student organizations, honor societies, things like that really kept me engaged and kept me on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And just I met people and I guess decided that I was at campus all the time anyway. I might as well work here. So started off as a part-time advisor at Lone Star College. 12 years later, here I am. And so I did go through a lot of hoops trying to find my passion, but eventually got there.
Right.
Now, my question is, if a student is undecided on their major, or maybe they're just not quite sure what direction they want to go in, what steps can they take?
It's a great question, and I'm going to pull up this graphic really quick just to show you. Let me see here.
I love graphics.
Yeah. A visual aid, right?
Definitely.
Let's see here. put it in here, and then share. Okay, here we go.
The suspense, Clarence.
Right. So this is kind of the cycle of the job search process is what we're looking at here. So it starts off with reflect, and then explore, develop, and then connect. Okay. So reflecting is you reflect on your strengths and your interests. What am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? What am I excited? What will get me excited to get out and go to that job every morning? Uh, and then the exploration is career education options. What kind of degree do I need that's going to get me to the pathway that I'm looking at? Uh, okay, so let me take this off. Okay, there we go. Um, yeah, so what I would say is, this process can begin as early as middle school. You're trying to discover what those interests are, about different industries that you might be interested in. For example, with me, I thought that law school was what I wanted to do from an early age. And then as I learned more about the process, I did more research. When I tried to take the LSAT 3 times and didn't do too hot on it, uh, and I started to talk to attorneys about what they actually do every day, and I realized that everyone's not going to be like Johnny Cochran or F. Lee Bailey, um, and I said, okay, let me kind of reevaluate this. Uh, Students can take a career assessment to see what they're good at. If they are an LSC student, they can take a free assessment using the Career Star website. Uh, Myers-Briggs is probably the most popular one out there, but it's actually not free. It costs about $50. Um, and there's also some free websites here that I can put on the screen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So these are all websites here that are listed on the screen where you can actually do a free assessment, and it will give you some more information on what you want to do. I would say, you have to ask yourself some hard questions when you're deciding a career. What kind of salary would you like to make? And you have to be realistic because you can look this information up on these websites, and it'll give you an idea. What kind of work-life balance? Are you going to have a family one day? Uh, so you can't be working until 10 o'clock at night, 6, 7 days a week. Um, and like I said, ask questions of the people that actually work in that field.
Yeah, informational interviews was a huge topic on one of the many classes I took in college, and
Yeah.
it's nice because it's like having a conversation. You are interviewing that person, but I think I actually had to do it for a grade.
Yeah.
But the term really stuck with me for years after that. I suggest it to my students all the time. It's wonderful.
Definitely.
Speaking of students, I have a question from one of our viewers.
Okay.
How can you get your first job with no experience?
It's a great question, Casey, and you actually already answered it when you were talking earlier about you started doing some volunteer work with student organizations on campus, and that eventually led to a part-time job, and then eventually led to a full-time job, right? So it can start with those are actually things that you can put on your resume. Student organizations, leadership positions. You can also volunteer to at a nonprofit agency. They're always looking for volunteers and to help them, and just look for something that kind of falls within your scope of what you studied. And internships are very, very important. I actually did 3 internships in my 4 years of college. I found opportunities and connected with our internship director, and was able to get 3 really good internships. Uh, and so of course internships may last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Some are paid, some are unpaid, but it's a really good way to get experience, even if it's an unpaid. Uh, and you can actually put that on your resume, and then also when you do those internships or even volunteer work, you can develop some good job references. and then you can use those when you're looking for your first job or for your next job.
I remember I did one marketing internship. It was the summer of, I think, 2009. I left that on my resume forever. It was like a 2-month internship, but I was so proud of it because it said the
Right.
word marketing assistant, and it
Right.
made me feel so good. I mean, even if it was just a quick internship for like 15 hours a week. But
Right.
very important. If anything, it builds that confidence to say I was an intern, or I worked for this company, that company, and then you meet people. And
Definitely.
that was a really great question. Thank you so much for asking it.
Yeah.
So another question kind of falls into that little scope. If I'm really interested in a position, but I don't quite meet all the qualifications, should I still apply?
What I would say is the short answer is yes, but I would just say be cautious about it. You definitely don't want to apply for something, if it says that you need 3 years of managerial experience and you've never worked as a manager, you definitely want to be cautious about that. I was actually hired for 2 jobs that I did not have any direct experience in. I did meet the basic qualifications, which was maybe that you had to have a college degree and maybe some general experience. But I was able to sell myself with my background in education. So I would also say remember transferable skills are very important. These are skills that can apply to any position that you've worked in that you can transfer over. So these are things like research, planning, adaptability, writing, project management. And we can talk about that a little later. But so yes, but be cautious and but if it's something you really want, yeah, definitely go for it if you think you might have a chance at it.
Might as well try.
Yeah.
And so we probably possess more of those transferable skills than we think. We just don't realize it until we realize it.
Right.
So let's say I just finished my associate's or my bachelor's degree, and I'm ready to get out there and I'm ready to find my first job in my field of study. Or let's just say I'm already working and I want a better job in my field. Just hypothetically, what are some basic tools that any job seeker might need?
Yeah, so that gets at kind of what we're talking about tonight, the main idea. And I'm going to show you a couple of graphics here in a second. But if you think about it, Casey, a job search is kind of like a running for office, running for public office. We just had election day yesterday, right? And so if you think about it, what do you need for a good campaign? You need a good campaign sign, right? That is your business card or your marketing networking card. You need a good campaign slogan, right? That is your objective on your resume. You need a good speech for events that you do for your campaign, right? That's your 30-second elevator pitch. You need to stay on message. That means you have to have a targeted approach to those jobs. But definitely some basic tools are going to be, of course, you want to have the nice business suit. So for those interviews that you're going to go on. Even if it's, a WebEx interview or Zoom, you definitely want to be, dressed appropriately.
Business on the top.
Right. You want to have a short but detailed cover letter and resume that actually targets that position that you're looking for, that you're applying for. You want to have a good LinkedIn profile, a professional email and voicemail greeting. Right? Maybe when you were in college, you had a fun voicemail and kind of a funny email address that you use for your email. Okay, but you don't want to put that on your resume. And you don't want an employer calling you, leaving you a voicemail, and it's something really casual and it's not professional, right? So you also want to have some references and letters of recommendation. You can also have some samples of your work and projects that you've worked on, even if it's projects in school that you worked on. You want to have a list of at least 50 or more target companies. You also want to have a business card. Just because you're not working or maybe you're working part-time, There's nothing that says you can't have your own business card for networking. And you can go to maybe a low-cost website where you can get a good business card that you can use for networking for job fairs. Um, and let me just show you this graphic of what I was talking about here. 1 second.
I'm intrigued by the business card. My mind is
Yeah.
like turning thinking about it.
Right, right. Yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't even think about, but it's something that you can do. You don't have to have a job to have your own business card.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
about
so this is what I was saying. It's a campaign. The goal is to get elected, which is to get that job, right? To get hired for that job. And so these are the issues that matter to the voters. You need to find a mentor to help you out, someone that's established in the field already. A targeted resume, practice your interviewing skills, target employers. Okay. Also, okay, here are at least 20 things, and some of them I've already mentioned, so you can just glance at it really quick and let the viewers look at it. Yeah, but this is a list of 20 things that you need for a good, and there's that business card right there. Your elevator pitch, a list of 100 people that you know. So let me ask you, Casey, why would you need a list of people that you know?
I don't have 100 people that I know.
You got them on your Facebook page and your Instagram.
I was going to ask you, so with references, and I know this kind of is off the topic, but should you ask permission for a reference to be a reference, or say, hey, I was thinking about maybe, would you be okay with this? Because
right.
What happens if you put their name on it and they are like, whoa, I don't have anything good to say about you. I don't want it to be a reference.
Right. You definitely don't want that call from HR to be the first time they know that you've listed them as a reference.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
but
then,
hopefully, as you're doing those internships that we talked about, and also maybe that volunteer work, you've gotten a couple of good references that you can list on your resume.
Okay, all right. And then, on the social media aspect, I was just going to point out, we were talking about Facebook pages, 100 followers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When you are job searching, maybe tone down the Facebook social media a tiny bit. There is a very large chance that a potential employer will click your name on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, if they know how to do it.
Definitely.
And so just kind of be careful on what those profile pictures look like, if anything is public. So just during that stretch of the job search, make sure the social media is appropriate, because that's getting to know you before getting to know you.
Right.
Like that.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's people that were probably pulled out of the application, when someone pulled up their Facebook.
That can be unfortunate.
Right.
So
yeah, and then a couple of other points. Have a positive mindset. It could take a little bit longer than maybe you plan. Sometimes you may have to work a part-time job or volunteer for a little while so you get some experience. You want to be organized and track those applications, dates, people that you spoke to, follow up. You can even create a spreadsheet. Yeah. So
check them off the list.
Definitely.
There's nothing, very satisfying.
Definitely.
So let's talk about networking. Mm-hmm. I hear that term all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work? Is there just in a nutshell, how does networking work?
Well, Casey, two of the jobs that I actually got that are on my resume, these were jobs that I never would have known about because they weren't posted on a popular job search page or anything like that. I found out about the companies just through going out and talking to people. One was at a church that I was at. Another one, I believe it was through a contact that I made when I was at a networking event. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important, because what I was saying is not necessarily every job is going to be posted on a website. Um, and so, basically networking is just tapping into, your contacts. It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be someone in school, an instructor, it can be family, um, and you're tapping into these contacts to help you with your career or job search in some way. I remember how you talked about on your last show how you got your current job through meeting the manager while you were at the mall one day.
Yep, my daughter's
Right.
birthday.
Right.
Yep.
And you just happened to run into him, and he recognized you from when you worked at the school in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, turned into a job. So it can literally happen like that. The most important thing to remember, I would say, is that networking can literally be anywhere and anyone. It doesn't have to be, in a professional setting or at a job fair. It could be your neighbor. It could be a church member. It could be someone at the gym that you met while you were working out. It could be an Uber driver. You know. Also, networking is not always necessarily about just getting a job. Sometimes it can be about, getting some more information from someone that works in the company that you're interested in. It may be about getting a contact, like maybe that person can't help you that you just met, but maybe they can put you in touch with someone else that can help you. You can also find a mentor from networking. And like I said earlier, a mentor is someone who's already established in your field. This might be someone who's a director, or manager, or CEO of a company in the field that you want to work in, who can train you, take you under their wing, not necessarily give a job for you. They may not have a job for you, but that mentoring is more valuable sometimes than a job. You can also connect with alumni groups from your college. And that's a good way to connect with people. So, and that's why that 30-second elevator pitch is so important, because you always want to be prepared at any time. Right.
Very cool. So I want to hear about this 30-second elevator pitch. Maybe, I guess we heard your example in the very beginning, but how does it work? I've heard the term before, but I don't know if I've ever actually seen it in action. So let's set the mood for this elevator pitch. I want to know what you have to say.
Okay. So it's called an elevator pitch because imagine that if you're actually get on an elevator and a manager or a director or a CEO of a company that you're interested in gets on the elevator with you, and you introduce yourself, and then you realize who this person is, and you only have a few seconds before you get off the elevator or they get off, and so you need to quickly make an impression, right, before they get off the floor. You don't have a lot of time. So what you want to do is start off, and I'm going to show a graphic on this in a second, but it starts off with a brief introduction of yourself. Okay, you want to state a quick summary of your background and skills next. This could be your current position. If you're not working currently, it could be, what school you went to. Next, you're going to quickly state the goal. Okay, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get an interview? Are you trying to get an informational meeting? Is it some type of business proposal maybe that you're trying to pitch? Do you want maybe just someone to pull your application, from the system, or look at your resume? Okay, so the goal. And then the last part is just going to be that call to action, which is, what is going to be that next step? What are you trying to do to make that connection? Is it going to be a phone call? Are you trying to set up a meeting, an interview? Would you like to possibly ask if you can email your resume to someone so that they can look at it? So let me pull up this graphic really quick. And here we go. And there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So introduce yourself, provide a summary of what you do, explain what you want, and finish with that call to action, that next step. What are you trying to set up? A meeting, an interview, um, and this all needs to be done in no more than 60 seconds.
Okay.
Okay?
Whew.
So Casey,
How
now
fast
that you
can
got
you
the
talk?
plan, let's hear your elevator pitch, Casey.
I'm gonna keep
We'll let you
going.
practice it.
Golly, the
I'll give
pressure's
you.
on. No, I have walked into an elevator before with a very important, I will say, person within the college system,
Right.
and I froze, and I said, "Hey, I know you," and he's looking at me like, "Yep,
Do you know that
you
I
probably
have
should."
walked in the elevator with the CEO over my department? I have also walked into the elevator with the chancellor of
Oh,
my college. Right. So it literally can happen like that.
it's okay. Just put your glasses on next time you go by them, so maybe they won't put two and two together. Okay.
Right.
All
Right.
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 So I'll practice on my elevator pitch. Right.
Right.
Because I was going to actually ask you if that would be convenient to do at a career fair. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times should you say it? I guess going to career fairs, are they really worth it? Are you just kind of repeating yourself, going to these booths, getting in robot mode? But I've heard that they're great to use, even if it's just repeating it over and over again to different employers. So I guess my question is, is it worth it to go to these career fairs?
Wow. That is kind of a loaded question there. Um, yeah, one other piece I forgot to mention about the elevator pitch.
Hmm.
Uh, make sure that you have a good response or that you're positive about it, because you may not necessarily get a good response. Some of these people are very well known. People are constantly coming up to them, asking them for things. So, just be pleasant about it, but you think of it as sometimes as you're planting a seed, to where you may not get anything right then and there, but, you know, I've gotten calls 6 months later after I connected with someone.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's a good segue into, talking about career fairs, worth going. So, who wants to really drive across town 30 miles, pay for parking possibly, fight traffic, come back during rush hour, come back home. You get to the job fair and you got your resumes and everything to go, and you get there and, maybe it's a recruiter that's there and they give you a paper that says, here's our website. And, maybe you're like, oh, wow, I didn't have to drive out here for that.
Yeah.
So, but there are some career fairs where I've seen where they actually did take resumes. There's some career fairs where they actually had interviews right there on the spot. That's a pretty common thing to do. What I would say is that, if you're a recent college graduate or if you're in your first 5 years of your career, I would say job fairs are an excellent tool to network, to practice your elevator pitch, to practice your interviewing skills. Also, people don't think about this, but a career fair, you can also meet other people and you can network with them. So you're not just going there to meet employers and recruiters, but there's other people that you can connect with, like I was saying earlier, who can maybe give you more information or help you connect with other people. And it's a great opportunity to practice your interviews in a low stress environment.
Mm-hmm.
You think about yourself sitting down at a desk or a table, and there's people walking around at the career fair, and you're sitting there interviewing. So obviously that's not going to be a high stress interview there. It's just going to be a basic exchange where they're, getting to know you and trying to see what your background is. There may be, like there's a church that I know about in Spring, Texas, that every week they have a program where employers actually come and they announce open jobs that they have. So that's, you can look for activities that are going on like that in your area as well. And
I've even seen stuff on job boards, like you go to Starbucks and pull a tab.
Oh yeah,
Or hi? Sorry,
definitely.
go on. I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt you.
yeah. Well, the only other thing I was going to say is that, you want to go to job fairs, of course, they've got those cups, those pins,
The free
those
swag.
patch drives, those t-shirts, and you don't want to miss out on that. So,
No, and then one other piece of advice for a career fair, maybe take a friend. Get yourself
right,
a cup of coffee, get out, one of your friends and
right,
go get yourself a job. Or at
right,
least go and talk with people. And I'm not sure about not everybody, but sometimes energy brings out that confidence,
right.
which I'm actually going to ask about in my next question is that confidence issue. So
Hmm.
in interviews, I know I can get really, really nervous. And I'm sure everybody gets those butterflies that, they just flutter around constantly. Once you get rolling, you're okay. But how can I walk without my friend and my coffee at a career fair, going into an interview? How can I walk in there with that confidence that I need?
Yeah, so there's a lot of information about interviews, and we definitely, probably don't have time tonight. But maybe we could talk about it at another show. Uh, some basic tips to remember, I would say, are that, remember, an interview is not just about you. A lot of people think of an interview as the company is checking you out, right? But you also need to see it as you're checking out that company as well
Yes.
to see if it's a good fit for you. And so, how do you do that? You have to be prepared. You do not want to go to an interview cold, not having done any research, no preparation, even if it's for a phone screening. You know, research that company, uh, the background. Maybe try to look up a little information on the background of the person that's going to be interviewing you. Uh, read the job description. Read the mission statement of the company. Every company has a mission statement.
Yes, they do.
Uh, what if they ask you a question? Something, how do you see your background fitting into our mission statement? Well, if you haven't read it, that's going to be a really hard question to answer,
Mhm.
right? Um, other questions, that might seem simple, but they're things that you need to have something prepared for, even if it's the same answer you get every time. Why do you want to work here? Why are you the best fit for this position? Uh, you want to have something creative and enthusiastic that's going to make you sound excited about that job. Why do I want to work here? Oh, this is such a dynamic, great company. I love what you do for the community as well. The mission statement is this and this and this, and make it look really good.
Yes.
Uh, I would also say, have copies of your resume ready. There were a couple of interviews I walked into where I didn't have a copy of my resume, thinking that they would have it, and they didn't. You know, and then it just kind of had a weird feeling. You know, be prepared. There also might be some skills assessment that you're going to take. Some of them will test you on your reading comprehension, your math skills. So brush up on that algebra, Casey.
Oh, I'm bringing my spelling test from third grade. They're going to see that I know my.
Right. You may even have to make a presentation. So be creative. Uh, get get a list of those accomplishments, those achievements that you did while you were in those student organizations in school. Uh, Also, be ready for those difficult behavioral questions. Okay, so these are questions. Tell me about a time when this happened with a manager, and how did you respond, or how did you deal with it? Practice, practice, practice. But don't practice with your sister or your brother unless they're going to be impartial. Practice with someone that is going to give you some really good, genuine feedback. Uh, and I would also add, make sure you have some questions that you ask them at the end. Usually, in every interview, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions for us? So you don't want that to just be, where you don't have anything ready. Uh, a good question that I like to use is, I'll say, what are the strengths that you're looking for in the candidate who would be successful in this position? You know, and that has a nice little spin to it where they can see that you put some thought into it. Um, those of all, just try to relax, be confident. Some interviews will be just one or two people. There are interviews I've walked in where it was like 7 or 8 people. Uh, so remember to sell yourself. You are the best salesperson for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll never forget when I applied for the job with the airlines, I walked in, this 19, 20-year-old girl thinking I was just going to do an interview like the same one I did for Chick-fil-A when I was 16, just me and the manager. And I walk in and there's this semicircle of about 10 people, and here I am with my freshly ironed blazer. Had no idea really what to expect. Thankfully, I'd done a little bit of research, a lot of research. But they did a panel interview where everybody stood up, had to answer different questions, so you couldn't even copy the person in front of you.
Right.
And from there, they chose 3 or 4 from that group to do an individual interview that same day. From there, it was another 6 months until I even got a call. So interviews can be tricky like that. I mean, talk about nerves. It was like an all-day nerve fest.
Right. But did you follow up with them during that 6 months at all?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. I mean, from the way the interview ended, they said it can be a while. It can be a couple months. And so I thought, after 2 or 3 months, I thought, well, I guess they just didn't like me. I must have said something wrong. And after, I think it was almost 6 months to the day, because they had to go through all of these checks and references, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so when you get the call to actually go to the training, it's another 3 or 4 weeks of training. And so the whole process itself probably took close to a year, from application to start date. It was, I would say, 1 whole year. So even when you are applying for those jobs, don't lose hope, because patience.
Yeah, but also you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket,
No,
right?
you don't. That's another
You don't want
thing.
to apply for 1 or 2 or 3 jobs and say, I'm going to get one of these jobs and I'm going to hold out and wait for these, right?
Right. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to do when I grow up, and I'm not going to stop until I get it. And in a perfect world, that will work every time.
Right.
But we have to keep our options open. Very good point.
Right.
I only have a couple more questions for you. I wanted to move on and ask about maybe some light reading. So I do love my Kindle. I like to read lots of different varieties of books. But are there any good books out there that you could read to maybe help with job searches?
Yeah. I put 2 of them down here in the screen, and the viewers can look at it. These books all have really good reviews. One of them is not on there. It's called Highly Effective Networking by Orville Pearson. The other 2 are the ones that are listed there. So the 2-Hour Job Search is an excellent book by Steve Dalton that has some really, really good information in it. Also, The Ultimate Job Search Guide by Martin Yates is a very good resource that will just give you all of this good information and tips to help guide you through the process.
All right, awesome. And thank you very much for writing them down, because they're kind of long titles. I mean, to be honest with you. So thank you. We can always go back to reference that.
Yeah.
Well, Byron, that's really all I have. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a complete pleasure talking with you. And I would love to have you back. I know that I have more questions. I'm sure that others have more questions, and I'm sure you've got more answers. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to have you back in a few months. If it's anything like my interview hiring process, it'll be a year. So hopefully not that long. Do you have any final tips for our viewers out there?
Yeah, and again, thank you, Casey, for having me. I love the show. I'd love to come back and maybe talk about resumes and cover letters. That's kind of the next step that, as you're preparing for an interview. The last thing I'll say is just remember the job search. Like I said, it's as much about you as it is about the company. So always have some questions ready for the end of your interview. Like I said, do your research, read company reviews, talk to people, current, former employees that have worked there. Always keep expanding that network and keep meeting people, meeting contacts, especially on LinkedIn. I would also say try to focus on companies, not necessarily just job openings, but those target companies that you're actually going after. Don't limit yourself to just online applications. There's small businesses, there might be organizations out there that you may not know about that you can find out, just through networking. Like we say, keep a record of all your applications and contacts. Stay positive. You know, it can sometimes take a little bit longer, like 6 months we were talking about. Um, and during that, if you do have a long period like that, consider doing some temporary volunteer work if you need to, and that can fill in the space on your resume and give you some more skills. Uh, you can also take that time to learn about a new product or maybe a new software that's related to your industry. Um, and this is very important. Don't stop the job search until you've actually started your first day of a job.
Very good advice.
Right? Yeah. Because what you don't want to do is you're applying, you've got some interviews going, you get a tentative offer or something like that, but nothing's in writing, and then they give you a start date, and then something happens and it falls apart, and then you shut down the job search, and because you thought you had this job. Get something in writing if you can, verifying your start date. Right.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again. I guess my advice to our viewers would be to, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of heavy information. So we did put little questions at the bottom if you want to fast forward or rewind or whatever, just to see exactly what you wanted to remember what we said. But also just be yourself. When you're doing interviews, when you're networking, try to just be yourself. And we are looking forward to having you come back for another talk with Timme. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.